Hello and welcome back. Today we're here to talk about Wr450F versus the Wr250F, and both amazing bikes. First things first, let's be sure that we understand that the chassis between the two bikes are, I'm pretty sure they're identical. So you got the same kind of suspension for both bikes. So the list of what is different between the bikes is very short. Obviously you got the 450 motor versus the 250 motor, and how that translates to actual riding of the bike. So the 450, let me back up. The 250 has always been called a very good beginner's bike. And I will agree with that, because that bike helped me learn how to ride actual dirt bikes. Prior to that, I knew how to ride dual sport bikes, not dirt bikes. So now, armed with that information and how to properly ride, well, I guess that might be a stretch too. You've seen my videos. Anyway, once I learned what I needed to from the 250, it was time to go with something with a little bit more power. So the biggest differences between the 250F and the 450F is power, the way it delivers that power, fuel economy, and how hot it runs. So let's start by talking about just the power itself. The 450F, if you do not respect that throttle, you will whiskey throttle quite a bit. By a quick blip of that throttle, that front end comes up like right now. So you do need to be very judicious with throttle application on the 450. The 250 wasn't quite as big of a monster. It was very, very easy to ride, and if you really wanted to thrash about, you had to use a lot of throttle. Now the 450 delivers most of its power at the low to mid RPM range, whereas the 250 delivered most of its power at the very high RPM range, which for trail riding was, for me personally, was kind of a disappointment, because on the trails that I ride here, you don't have a lot of big open straightaways where you can actually get the 250 to stretch its legs. So that's where I like the 450 coming into play. Now the 450 also has a 5-speed transmission, versus the 250 has a 6-speed transmission, which for me translates quite well on the trails, having a 5-speed versus a 2-speed, primarily because I don't have to keep shifting through the gears, searching for the right gear at the right time. Where this one here, I'm in first and second gear. Very rarely can I actually get out of third just because I don't have enough space. The throttle on the 450 versus the 250. The 250 always had a problem, and I said it from day one, that the throttle seemed twitchy. Because the throttle actually had, like, it was either on or it was off. So even if I were to roll back the throttle or roll off throttle, I would have to pull that clutch in. Otherwise, when I apply more throttle, it would jerk. And I tried to tune it out with the GYTR tuner. I just couldn't. I mean, I got close, but it was always there. Whereas on the 450, I can roll on and off the throttle, and I don't have to worry about the whole bike jerking or lurching or anything like that. And it seems to be a very gradual application of power right at the beginning, and that throttle is not simply on and off. So That's a very, very big improvement versus the 250. The 450 in comparison to the 250 runs really, really hot, which for the trails I ride, this is the beauty of the WR versus the YZ, because you do have the fan. The fan, especially in the middle of summer, helps quite a bit. If you have the YZ does not come with a fan. You have to buy one and put one on. So the 250 also had one, but it never ran as often as what this one does on the 450. Now let's also talk about fuel economy, which fuel economy, it's a dirt bike, who cares? Yeah, that's true. So the 450 here, in comparison to the 250, drinks gas. The 250 sips gas. So I did a ride, the Clone Peak ride, we did about 63 miles, which even to this day is probably the longest or most mileage I've trail ridden in one day, all at one time. So, but the 250, when I came back, you know, I still had gas in the tank. I wasn't worried about running out. I mean, I was before I went, but after I went and I actually filled it up and saw how much I used, yeah, it was nothing. Whereas this one here, shoot, I ran, maybe 28 miles the other day on some trails, and I went through a whole gallon of gas. So, and this only has a 2.1 gallon tank, so, you know, we're 50, 60 miles, and I'm empty. Which, again, for me, not a big deal, primarily because I don't often ride that far in one day. I mean, after about 30 miles or so, I'm pretty beat up. So that's a big difference between the two bikes, is the fuel consumption. Other than that, what I'm going to have is some comparison video. I'm riding the same trails that I rode with the 250, but with the 450, and we'll kind of do a little comparison, and you can kind of listen to the bike. I'm sure from time to time you'll see the front end of the 450 come up versus the 250 not, and hopefully this will help for anybody who's actually trying to decide between the 250 and the 450F. Kind of lost what gear I was in there. I love that jump.